The general election is just about 8 weeks away when San Diegans will not only select our country's leader, but our city's leader as well. As part of the EW Scripps Company, 10 News is dedicated to providing the information you need to make informed decisions. Tonight, the candidates for mayor of San Diego, Carl DeMaio and Bob Filner, will face tough questions from a panel of journalists and you, the viewers.
10 News' Steve Atkinson will moderate tonight's debate.
Well, good evening and welcome to Democracy 2012, Your Voice, Your Vote. I am joined tonight by a panel of journalists, 10 News anchor Kimberly Hunt, KPBS Metro reporter Katie Orr, and 10 News anchor Virginia Cha. We begin tonight with the candidates having 1 minute for opening statements. The order was determined by a coin toss, and Carl DeMaio, you go first, sir. Your time begins right now.
Thank you and good evening. San Diego faces an important election in November. The question will be whether we will continue forward in reforming city finances to achieve cost savings and accountability in every city department so that we can restore our services, our after-school programs, our police and fire coverage, so that we can repair our roads, and that we can create and foster a jobs-friendly environment at City Hall. Or whether we'll fall back to the failed policies of the past of financial irresponsibility and insider deals. I'm proud of the fact that I've worked with both sides of the political spectrum, Democrats, Republicans, and independents in the middle, to help move San Diego forward with fiscal reform, making San Diego a model for pension reform in resolving our city's financial problems. As mayor, I will continue this style of leadership of bringing everyone together and problem solving for the future of our city.
Mr. Filner, you now have 1 minute for your opening statement. Your time begins now, sir.
Thank you. Let me define the key issue of this campaign just slightly different. The issue here is whether we're going to have the same group of people who have been controlling City Hall for the last 50 years, the same special interests, the same lobbyists, the same lawyers, same guys who back Mr. DeMaio. Are they going to be in control again? My administration will offer a whole different path, different people at the table. As I like to say, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. We have to have people who have not been represented in City Hall, have not been represented in the economic and political power of this city at the table. The neighborhoods that have not had their infrastructure repaired, the groups that have not had any political appointments or any economic power in the city, the groups that have not had their tourist centers actively represented by the power structure in this city. It's time that we broke the special interest stranglehold in City Hall and represented the whole number of people who have been unrepresented. That will happen with the Bob Filner administration.
Mr. Filner, thank you. Your time is up. We now turn to our panelists for their questions. We're going to start with Kimberly Hunt. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond, and each will have 30 seconds for rebuttal. Kimberly?
I begin directing the question to Bob Filner. And the two of you have been campaigning for quite some time for mayor, in case you've forgotten. But since the primary, one thing that has changed is Prop B. And if you can't get the employee associations and the other unions to go along with the 5-year freeze, what is your plan B for Prop B? How will you bring in the savings that are promised?
Well, you know, Prop B has been passed by the voters. It's been challenged in the courts. If it's validated by the courts, we must in fact implement it. And the proposition main cost savings, you know, it costs money. In fact, we have a bill already for the transition to a new system of $25 million. And, I'm not sure where that's going to come from. So we already have a bill for Proposition B. But the cost savings come from a 5-year pensionable pay freeze. I'm the one who can negotiate a 5-year freeze. Prop B, by the way, calls for a 1 year at a time thing. And what Mr. DeMaio has done is alienate all the public employees, alienate those who work for the city, those who we need to answer the 911 calls, protect our streets, answer the fire calls. I'm the one who can negotiate a 5-year pensionable pay freeze, which will save the city, hundreds of millions of dollars because you got that 5-year. And if the Proposition B is to be believed, $1 billion in the future. So if you want to implement Prop B, you'll have to vote for Bob Filner.
Mr. Filner, your time is up. Mr. DeMaio, you now have 1 minute to address this question.
Well, this is such a core issue, and it's been the driving issue behind the city's financial crisis. Because our pension costs have skyrocketed, as city employees retire at age 50, at age 55 as well, These early retirement ages and these big pension payouts have resulted in slashed services and road repairs that have been delayed, higher costs of living on San Diegans. We needed to make pension reform a priority, and that's why I was proud to join with Democrats, Republicans, and Independents in building a citizens movement to reform our pension system through Prop B. And it passed overwhelmingly, despite the fact that my opponent, the congressman, called it a fraud and campaigned actively against it. He said something very key in his remarks to your question. He said, if validated by the courts. So Mr. Filner's approach is to deny, delay, and dodge the important issue of pension reform and use lawsuits as a scapegoat. We have been moving forward, we being the City Council, Democrats and Republicans, and this mayor and this city attorney. We just 2 weeks ago got our labor unions to agree to a 401k program, and I'm confident we will have the same success in our negotiations in coming years.
Mr. DeMaio, your time is up. Mr. Filner, you have 30 seconds for rebuttal.
You know, we're going to talk a lot in this debate about who can bring people together and who's divisive and who's not. Let me just point out, this is an issue that should have been decided by the City Council, which Mr. DeMaio sits on. He couldn't get anything passed on the City Council, so he had to go for a referendum. A referendum tends to be very divisive. It tends to be, these are very badly written usually, so they're going to be in the courts. They'll probably be in the courts for decades. So you need someone who can focus on solutions, not goes for the chaos and the division that referendum always cause.
All right. Mr. DeMaio, 30 seconds for rebuttal.
Well, Mr. Filner, if you thought that the City Council was doing such a great job on pension issues, why did it take them a decade and no pension reform to solve the problem? And so what I did was I joined with the citizens, stood with the people against the special interests, against the very labor bosses, union bosses that opposed pension reform and now back you for mayor. You are their candidate. So if you want pension reform, we have to have the same coalition that got pension reform by taking it to the people. And I've got to give credit to this City Council. They saw the writing on the wall. Some of them opposed this pension initiative, but once it was passed, we worked together. And 2 weeks ago, we got the 401k program in place, and 2 weeks ago, I announced 4 votes on the City Council to achieve that pension pay freeze.
Sir, your time is up. I'm going to have to cut you off there. Our next question is for Mr. DeMaio, comes from Katie Orr.
Mr. DeMaio, you've based your campaign on restoring the city's fiscal health, yet you voted against budgets that your fellow council members, Republicans and Democrats, have supported, and not only supported but praised in some cases. So some people say that you are refusing to acknowledge fiscal progress that the city is making because it doesn't benefit your campaign platform. What's your response to that?
You know, I love it when we see the progress that we are making. It's so important that we have an honest budget. And what I've always said is I will only support budgets that are honest, that don't sweep problems under the rug. This last budget, we made a lot of progress, but we still saw our neighborhood infrastructure get second priority. In fact, this budget underfunds, fails to fund properly road repairs, sidewalk repairs, public facility repairs, repairs to our storm drain system, which is important for preserving our environment. I believe that we ought to pass budgets that are honest, that reflect community priorities, that implement reforms. I've actually put forward a balanced budget plan each and every year. And we've been able to get council members to adopt many of those ideas in the annual budget. But I'm still holding out until we can get our services restored, our infrastructure repaired, and a leader shows not only a path forward, a leader builds consensus on getting that done. That's why pension reform has now been put into implementation. Managed competition is on a roll, something I authored in 2006
Mr. DeMaio,
and pushed
I'm going
forward
to have
on
to cut
through the
you
council.
off there. Mr. Filner, you now have 1 minute to respond.
You know, in one breath he says he's trying to get a consensus. The other breath he says he has to vote no. I mean, which is it, Carl? I mean, you are on the City Council. You can't get a budget that reflects the extremism that you profess. So you vote no. You vote no on everything. No, 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 no. You voted no on after-school programs. You voted no on the infrastructure repairs. You voted no on arts and culture. You voted no, 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 no. And yet you're on the City Council. You say you have the ability to get a consensus. Where is the consensus that you always have to vote no on? I have been president of the school board of San Diego. We had 5-0 votes on virtually everything. I have been the deputy mayor of the city of San Diego, elected by a group that was not a majority of my party. And we had a very working city council. I was the chairman of the Veterans Committee, United States Congress, that we had to pass tens of billions of dollars for our veterans, their mental health, their homeless situation. And we got a unanimous Congress to do that. That's the solution building. That's building consensus.
Mr. DeMaio, 30 seconds.
I find it humorous that the congressman thinks that his 20 years of experience with the federal budget is somehow experience to rely on. Mr. Filner has voted for budget after budget after budget with trillions of dollars in debt. That's increased our national debt 394% since he took office and left our entire country in a fiscal crisis. In each of those budgets that I voted against, each year I voted against the budget because it wasn't balanced. And city management said, yes, it was balanced. Guess what? In each and every one of those years, during the middle of the year, they disclosed that they indeed did not balance the budget. I'm about honesty and making sure that our budget reflects our neighborhood values.
Mr. Filner, 30 seconds rebuttal.
You know, honesty would say, you know, that you were in the city council for 4 years. Where is the balanced budget? I was the chairman of the Veterans Committee in the United States Congress. I was responsible for that part of the budget. And we had, in fact, a 70% increase at a time when everything was being cut for our nation's heroes, to end their homelessness, to end their mental illness, to create to allow them to go to college and to buy a home. I mean, this is what problem solving is. This is what consensus is, not constant chaos and say no, 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 no.
All right. Our next question is for Bob Filner, and it comes from Virginia Chow. Virginia?
Congressman Filner, we all know San Diego schools are cash-strapped. Given that and all the sacrifices being made, what real solutions can you bring to maximize the money we do have?
1 minute, sir.
Thank you, Virginia. You know, I am the education mayor. I came to San Diego 42 years ago to teach history at San Diego State. I received my doctorate at Cornell University. I was on the school board and president of the school board. I'm the only one who's put my kids through the San Diego Unified School District. In fact, I have grandchildren in the school district today. My daughter-in-law is a teacher in the school district. So if you want an education mayor, here it is. We have to do two things. One, I'm going to be part of a statewide coalition that says there should be adequate funding for our schools. We've gone down in a generation from being first in the country to almost last. Mr. DeMaio is part of a coalition that says cut our schools, cut our ability. And I want the whole city to be involved in the education of our children. What happens after school and before school? The programs that Mr. DeMaio voted no on. I want our museums. I want our Navy, I want our sports teams, I want our big business, I want our small business to be involved in taking care of the kids, giving them learning experiences, giving them the way to see how their after school and their school relate. That's what we have to do for education in San Diego.
Mr. DeMaio, you now have 1 minute to address this question.
Education is a key issue. That's why it is a critical part of my economic plan, because you cannot build a strong economy without strong schools that teach our children the skills they need to compete in a 21st century economy. And that's why the mayor has to be at the table. I have consistently voted and supported expansion in our after-school programs, contrary to what you just represented, Congressman. I'm the only one who's offered in this campaign a budget that shows how we can restore those after-school programs. It's a 294-page budget plan that actually balances, and it takes a balanced approach. It uses managed competition, which voters approved in 2006. It implements pension reform. It requires a performance audit every city department. And this provides the savings that we can reinvest into library hours, park and rec programs, after-school programs. We've laid out a very ambitious Hire a Youth program that would be implemented in partnership with local businesses to give our children apprenticeships and internships. The list goes on and on of innovative ideas to help our schools prepare our children for a bright future.
Mr. Filner, 30 seconds of rebuttal.
You know, Carl, you have a plan, you say, you have rhetoric, but your votes are no, 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 no. You voted against every single budget that has been presented, every single increase in after-school programs, every single program which somehow you discovered. You managed to discover in this mayoral election issues that you never addressed. They're not part of anything you've ever said, whether it's education or Mexico or the environment. You've never said anything about them. All of a sudden you discover it. Bob Filner has been working his whole life on issues of education. And when I presented my plan a few days ago, it had the backing of virtually every school board member in this county.
Mr. DeMaio, 30 seconds.
Bob, you can have your own opinion, but you can't have your own facts. And I just simply will not allow you to distort the record. The record is clear that I'm running on a plan that shows how we actually will restore those services. And in each and every budget that I voted against, I said it didn't balance, and it also was wrong to cut our neighborhood programs, library hours, park and rec. Go back and review the record. It's very clear. The ultimate test of a leader is not just using rhetoric, but it's providing a roadmap forward with details on how to get there and being a leader getting things done, and I'm proud of the fact I've been that leader.
All right, moving on to our next question. It was submitted through our website, 10news.com. Andrew in Mission Valley writes, what are your plans for trying to keep the Chargers here in San Diego? Mr. DeMaio, you have 1 minute to respond to this question.
Well, certainly we're proud of our team. We'd like to have the Chargers stay, and I believe that they will. But it will require a public-private partnership to address some of the concerns that they have about the current facility. I do not support government funding. I do not support city funding for a new Charger stadium. It's simply not in the cards. We have to first focus on our street repairs, our public facility repairs, our storm drain repairs. These are the core issues of our local government that we've neglected, and we have to get to those first. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to be interested in looking at creative ways to bring in partnerships. That means we have to have a multi-use facility, a sports and entertainment complex that's situated perhaps in the idea district, where we bring innovative companies and ideas into the same area, where we have meeting space, where we can use the facility not just 13 or 14 times a year, but 365 days a year. And I'm already working with a team putting together the financing package that will allow us to do this without taxpayer funding from the city.
Mr. Filner, 1 minute on this question.
You know, I love the Chargers, and I hope by the time our viewers see this, we'll have recorded our first win on Monday Night Football. But we can't give a billionaire owner of a team that's making hundreds of millions of dollars another $1 billion of city money. We know the kind of extortion that these teams have put on us. The ticket guarantee, others. We simply have rolled over. And that's because special interests have dominated city. Special interests that are backing Mr. DeMaio have controlled the city. And if you want to change from that, you got to vote for Bob Filner. Having said that, if we can find a way where their investments actually help the city in our ability to do things, then I'm going to work with them. For example, if a new stadium ends up freeing Mission Valley for San Diego Regional Park, River Park, and for San Diego State Housing, if you can free up the sports arena area in Point Loma, then we have the possibility of a deal here.
All right, Mr. DeMaio, 30-second response.
You know, I think our citizens are sick and tired of politicians that say one thing but then do another. Mr. Filner says that he's going to break the cycle of special interest control at City Hall, but he's supported by the very same special interests that helped create the city's financial crisis. The government employee labor unions that demanded higher pensions, that demanded tax and fee increases, that demanded no open competition, that are trying to defeat pension reform and any of the efficiency reforms that we've been making progress on. And so those are the folks backing Bob, the same folks that have been driving our fiscal crisis for the past decade.
Mr. Filner, 30 seconds.
Since you've shifted the question to special interests, you know, I'll put up my machinists, my laborers, my carpenters, my working people, my teachers, my police officers, my firefighters. I'll put them up against your lobbyists, your lawyers, your developers. You know, you got the biggest developer in the city, Mr. Manchester, who now owns the Union Tribune, backing you. How can you say that you're not for the special interests? They're the ones that, by the way, are sure our viewers have seen all the negative advertising financed by millions of dollars of the special interest funding already on your TV. That's who's going to try to derail my candidacy, the special interests, who are afraid that we're going to change who has a seat at the table in City Hall.
Mr. Filner, I'm going to have to cut you off there. We're going to have to take a quick break. Our debate with San Diego's candidates for mayor, though, will continue here in just a moment, so please stay with us. All right, before the break, our candidates began sparring over UT publisher Doug Manchester's support of Carl DeMaio. We want to continue with that part of the debate. You each have 1 minute to respond to this. Mr. DeMaio would let you go first with 1 minute.
Sure. Mr. Filner, again, likes to talk the talk but not walk the walk. He's been the king of special interest money in Washington, taking over $4 million in PAC money. He's taken hundreds of thousands of dollars from lobbyists, lawyers, and developers. So if he wants to cast fault, he needs to be consistent, and he cannot be hypocritical about it. The fact is, I'm building a broad coalition of Democrats, Republicans, and independents who support my agenda for fiscal reform, who have supported me on pension reform, managed competition, who've supported me as we've worked together to oppose that massive sales tax in 2010 and stand up for working families. I'm proud of the fact that with all of San Diegans working together, we've made San Diego a model in fiscal reform. We're turning the corner, and we're starting to restore services. I will continue to be a mayor to bring people together, and I will work with all sides, even sides I may not always agree with, because we have a common purpose: to fix the city of San Diego's financial issues, restore our services, and create jobs.
Mr. Filner, 1 minute on this issue.
You know, I think the question was about Doug Manchester, who's the owner and publisher and the biggest developer in San Diego. I didn't hear Mr. DeMaio mention his name once. Are you ashamed of his endorsement? I mean, the biggest developer in town, the owner of the paper, and his editors say they're going to do everything possible to keep Bob Filner from becoming mayor. I mean, that's the kind of special interest that's arrayed against me here. And that's the kind of, the developers, the realtors, the developers and their lobbyists and the lawyers who represent them. He won't even mention his name. And yet, every other word that Mr. DeMaio mentioned is reform. Reform. You know what reform means? Here's the acronym for reform. Real estate for Manchester. Manchester being the publisher of the newspaper. He has real estate in Mission Valley he wants to develop. He needs the city council to approve. He has real estate downtown that he wants to develop. He needs the city council approval. He has real estate interest down at the port that he wants to develop. He needs the city council. Reform? Real estate for Manchester.
Mr. Filner, your time is up. I'm going to have to cut you off there. We're moving on to our next question now. That comes from Katie Orr for Bob Filner.
Mr. Filner, the medical marijuana community views you as an advocate for them. What is your position on medical marijuana? How would you address it if you were elected San Diego's mayor? And what are your thoughts on the federal policy that contrasts with the state policy? The federal government, of course, outlaws the use of medical marijuana.
Well, I am an advocate for medical marijuana because I'm an advocate for those who are suffering from chronic diseases, whether they be cancer or other forms. I've met hundreds and hundreds of patients whose only kind of pain relief comes from medical marijuana. The state of California, 15 years ago, passed a referendum which said that would be legal if a doctor prescribed it, and if there was a certain kind of cooperative that provided the medical marijuana, it was legal. The city council, unfortunately, in which Mr. DeMaio sits, never passed a workable kind of ordinance which would allow both the provision of medical marijuana and the regulation, I think, that we all want against drugs. On the federal level, by the way, I have sponsored legislation which says that California and about a dozen other states which have tried to legalize medical marijuana should have the authority to do it. In this case, I'm for states' rights. I hope Mr. DeMaio joins me in that. And I have objected to the U.S. Attorney's attempt to close up all the dispensaries. I think it's been wrong for San Diego, and as mayor, I will work with the city council to get a realistic, regulatory, but permissive kind of approach toward those dispensaries.
I'm going to have to cut you off there, sir. Mr. DeMaio, you have 1 minute.
Well, I support medical marijuana because it's the law of the state of California. And it's not just a law passed by politicians, it's a law approved by Californians themselves through the initiative process. Californians were right to recognize that compassionate use, the extent to which marijuana can help someone with a terminal illness, manage their pain, manage their illness, that's something that we should allow for in regulated and proper environments. The challenge is, how do we regulate it? And that's why I have been working with the medical marijuana community on a targeted, strict ordinance that would allow us to permit certain delivery services and dispensaries in the city of San Diego, a limited number, with audits and effective enforcement and oversight. It's a thoughtful and balanced approach to what is really a controversial issue but it's an issue that San Diegans, if we are thoughtful about, we can come together and make San Diego a model.
All right, at this point we have come to the end of our debates. Both candidates will have 1 minute to deliver their closing remarks. Bob Filner, you get to go first, and your time begins now.
You know, these are complex issues which we have to deal with. We had a minute each or 30 seconds to try to deal with them. Obviously, that's not sufficient to deal with these kind of issues. You need a lifetime experience to deal with them. I have served on the school board of San Diego, including being president. I have been elected twice to the San Diego City Council, including a term as deputy mayor. I was the councilman for downtown, which when we pushed through the gas lamp development ordinance, which gave us one of the most vibrant places in our city. I was the councilman for Balboa Park, where we passed the comprehensive plan for Balboa Park, which would have, if implemented by later council people, in fact freed up the center of Balboa Park from cars and other forms of transportation. I have served 10 terms in Congress. My proudest service has been chairman of the Veterans Committee, where we did enormous amount of work for our nation's heroes. So if you want experience and you want a vision, then the ability to bring them both together, you're going to have to vote for Bob Filner for mayor.
Mr. DeMaio, you have 1 minute for your closing statement.
Well, I think San Diegans know where I stand on the issues because I have been fighting to reform our city government for almost a decade, and we've been making progress. My plan can be summed up in the 3 Ps: pensions, potholes, and prosperity. On pensions, we're going to implement the voter-approved initiative that I authored. We're going to make sure that we resolve our city's financial problems. We're going to restore our services that we've lost in the past decade. Potholes, we're going to rebuild our community infrastructure, starting with our streets, our sidewalks, our schools, our storm drains, so that we can have strong and vibrant neighborhoods. Prosperity, we're going to create conditions where job creation can occur again, cut red tape, stand up for private investment, and make sure that our children have quality schools where they learn what they need to know to compete in a 21st century economy. Most importantly, you'll get a style of leadership that brings people together from all political parties, Democrats, Republicans, and independents, as we have all come together to get these reforms implemented. I will continue to do that in the future with your help.
Candidates, we want to thank you for your time. Panelists, thank you as well for your questions here tonight. And we also want to thank all of you for watching tonight. We hope that tonight's debate will help you make informed decisions on Election Day, November the 6th. Have a good evening.